Shawn Kanungo. Welcome to the 5-year plan.
I am so excited to be on the 5-year plan. I've been waiting my entire life to be on the 5-year plan.
You've been waiting longer than 5 years to be on this 5-year plan.
Listen. By the way, if you've gotten this far, rate, review, subscribe to this pod because you're putting in the work. Look at this. I mean, this is beautiful. It looks incredible. And you know the reason why I think you're going to be successful is because A, you're incredibly talented. B, you're clearly putting in a ton of effort. C is that, you understand marketing. You know how to push. And a lot of people, they want to put they put a product together, a podcast together, something together. But they don't know how to push it. And I think you're really good at push. So I think you have all the ingredients of this going like this. And that's why I'm on this, to be honest with you. Because if I wouldn't be on this unless it's going somewhere.
It will. We'll just see in 5 years.
Yeah.
No,
I'm super humbled to be here. Like I love just seeing you glow and just excited to be on.
It's clear to me that you're all about innovation. You're all about disruption. You are all about sort of taking the road less traveled by, doing the thing that scares people to do.
Yeah.
Were you like that as a kid?
Well, I grew up in a very traditional South Asian household where you were told to, take a certain route, or you always grew up where you heard this line, which was, what will people say, or what will the community say? And I think that is driven in you. And so you're always checking yourself. And you typically, because you're concerned about what your parents say or what the community says, you follow the rules, right? My brother and I, we were great students. We didn't do anything outside of the norm. And I think it's only later that I learned that, wait a minute, there's a different path. Like you can go off and experiment, and there's a whole new world that you can go off and explore. And it's not about learn. It's almost even unlearning. Yeah, it's funny because you go through this entire life learning about the world or trying to learn about the world, and then the rest of your life is trying to unlearn everything that you just learned.
Yeah.
Growing up in school and university. So, I've been trying to go through that path of unlearning because of my traditional house, South Asian household. And I'm sure you probably had the same, right? Like you were like a gifted pianist, and that's how I know you, because I got you to come to one of our keynotes and to do your thing. And you grew up. I'm sure you grew up in a very traditional household too, right?
I did, yeah. I mean, before we started recording, I was telling you about my parents. You had asked, do you have a tiger mom? And I said, I didn't have a tiger mom, but I did have a tiger dad,
right?
Which I thought was worse. In the best way possible. I love you, Dad, if you're listening to this podcast, which he does. So
nice.
gotta shield it with that.
Right.
But
right.
I mean, so
how was your dad? How was your dad tough?
So he was tough in a very untraditional way, I would say. So I was telling you that he didn't care. Neither of my parents really didn't. Neither of them cared about my marks. They didn't care about how I did in school, which is a very anti-Chinese thing to do. But my dad cared a lot about two things. One, he cared a lot about piano. Not necessarily that I was really good at it or like won any competitions. He cared about my discipline. So he cared about the fact that I would practice a certain amount of hours every day. He cared about the fact that I was, prepared for exams or prepared for festivals or even prepared for my piano lessons, to be frank. And then the second thing he cared about was having structure in my life. And what that always looked like was he always wanted me to have a clean room, and he always wanted me to wake up early. And it's funny because growing up, I think it's because he was very strict with me about those things. I wanted to rebel, and so I would always, I stay up late, I'd wake up late, my room
Yeah.
was always messy, and now I'm the complete opposite. Like, anyone who has met me in these last, I don't know, 6 years, would not believe that I used to wake up at, like, 10 AM and, miss my first class or something like that. Because right now I'm very disciplined. I wake up at 4:45 every single morning,
Right.
and I'm very, strict to myself about being organized.
So
And
this is
yeah,
your dad, and
that was
that's
all
your
my
dad.
dad. Yeah.
That's your dad coming back, haunting you. Hey,
Yeah.
Anna, you gotta wake up at 4:45 a.m.
Exactly,
And
exactly.
no, that's great though. I think teaching that discipline and that work ethic is obviously has paid dividends, right, for you. And I think when you're doing something creative, like piano, where you're using different senses, it you have the both you have both sides, which is like this discipline, this practice, while also this art, right? You're creating
Mhm,
this art, and it
for sure.
shows why you're both disciplined and creative, right? Like
Mm.
you can do both, and I think that's an incredible skill set.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I didn't even actually put 2 and 2 together, but, now I have.
Yeah, I mean, I think most people are just maybe they're afraid of showcasing that creative side of them, and
Mhm,
especially within our I mean, you probably know a lot of, you probably met so many of your friends that were East Asians, South Asians.
for sure.
Um, I know so many people that are creative, yet they're not willing to put themselves out there because it's in the back of their mind. The parents are in the back of their mind, like, what will
Mhm.
the community say? What will people say?
Yeah.
And that's why I think you see so few like you see fewer creators like in our sort of that look like us because
Yeah.
of that mindset.
Well, can I ask you then, how was it that you were able to unlearn? Like, when did the unlearning process start for you?
Yeah, I think part of the unlearning process was when my father passed away. He passed away in 2008, and at that point I was in accounting. And a couple of years later, I transferred into consulting and was there for a decade. But what I realized when my dad passed away, that you learn when somebody close passes away, that you start to learn that life is short.
Mm,
And the moment that really hit me was, when somebody close passes away, I didn't know this, but like everybody rushes to your house for weeks.
mhm,
And it's not even you can't even have a chance to mourn because you're just there's like so many people in your house, and you gotta actually feed people and sit down and chat like you do. And then after 2 weeks, everyone leaves.
mm,
And at that moment, you're like, wait, everyone goes off and they have to live their own lives. And it's not that they don't care, but it's like they got their own stuff to figure out. And it's only at that after those 2 weeks, I realized, wait a minute, everybody cares about you, but also they care a lot about themselves too.
themselves.
And
Yeah,
and people have to go on. People
yeah,
people move on.
yeah.
And so I'm like, wait a minute. At that point, there was a complete trigger where I'm like, I got to focus on things that I love and that that I've always wanted to do.
Mhm,
And so it's not like I did something all at once, but my friends and I we started creating films. We started
mm.
creating movies, and then they were terrible, but I learned how to edit.
Yeah.
I started building mobile apps. None of them were a success. We created a whole bunch of apps, but I learned about consumer experience and design and AI. And then along the way, you just like push yourself outside of your comfort zone, and then you pick up different skills.
Mhm,
And then, in consulting, I learned how to like persuade and convince and like how to do decks in a compelling way and
mhm,
graphics and all this stuff. And then I just put it all together with what I'm doing now.
mm.
And I'm able to like, I can speak, I can persuade, I can edit, I can create a nice deck, I
Yeah.
can put it all together because I built all those skill sets along the way. Like I fundamentally believe that an identity is like a house,
Mm.
and you build it room by room by room. And when you need to lock in and like and go to a particular room, like, hey, wait a minute, I was there before. Like, that piano room where you have to be disciplined. You got to wake up at 4:45 and go to practice. Like, you already unlocked that room. That's already there. You know that you can lock in and go back there.
Mm.
And I think part of life is just creating these different rooms, and that an identity is not built by like going to Asia and finding yourself. It's by putting yourself outside of your comfort zone and building these different rooms along the way. And so, my father passing away was like totally the light bulb to be like, hey, I need to push myself and create these different rooms.
Mm. So what you just said reminds me of a concept that I feel like is taking over the internet right now, which is
Okay.
this concept of portfolio careers. Have you heard about that?
No.
So basically, what a portfolio career is very similar to what you just said about how traditionally we're taught or we're told that you pick a career, you work towards it, you do it, and that's who you are.
Okay.
That's what you do,
Yeah.
right? So for me, for instance, right, I picked law as my career. And so I'm Anna, the lawyer. That's what I do. But this idea of portfolio career is that you're not just one thing. Your career is made up of multiple different things, like a portfolio. So you may have a background in law, for instance, but you decide that you're going to pivot and you're going to do content creation, and then you're going to pivot again and you're going to do film or whatnot, right? Basically, this idea that you can be multiple things
Yeah.
at different times and also at once. And it's through doing that that you become a more successful individual than that one person who just picked that one career and that one path and continue down it forever. So, what do you think about that? Do you think that people are more successful if they have what I'm referring to as a portfolio career as opposed to the one thing that they picked and the one thing that they're doing?
I am conflicted on this because, in my book, The Bold Ones, I pull out this study, and it's probably the most profound study on innovation that anybody's ever created, which is these researchers, they took a look at some of the greatest innovators, thinkers, inventors throughout history. They unpacked their careers and tried to discover why are these individuals so prolific over time. And what they discovered was that, in fact, these individuals went through a period of exploration. They tried different things. They picked up different skills, and then at some point they exploited. Just basically what I told you right now, which
Mhm.
was what I did. I explored a whole bunch of things, then you exploited. In my opinion, it would be bad advice for me to say, go off and try, leave your job, become a content creator, then sail a ship, and then go become a barista. I think that would be bad advice because that's not what I did. I actually stuck around at a career for 12 years, and but along the way, I picked skills. I didn't have to leave the job that I was at to pick up those different skills. I just moonlighted on the side to develop those skills. And so I just think that you see so many people jumping jobs now
Mhm.
when actually the ultimate flex now, I believe, is like, can you stay at a company for 10 years and grind it out
Mhm.
and, become a leader and understand what that is to grind it out for 10 years? Like, to me, that's actually in this day and age,
Mhm.
seeing a young person grind it out for 10, 20 years and develop all these different skills along the way is, to be honest with you, equally as impressive or maybe even more impressive. But I don't want somebody that has been in a career for 10, 20 years. They haven't learned anything. They've
Mhm.
just done their job. They've gone home and watched Netflix, and they didn't pick up any new skills
Mhm.
because they weren't hungry or curious. And so I think you could do both. I think you can go off and try a whole bunch of different things. And then I think you can also stick in a career and build different skills. But
Mm.
the whole thing is like, you got to continuously learn. To me, that's the only variable today. And, people always ask me, and I know we're going to move to the AI thing, but like, I just think that today is the greatest time in human history to be a new grad, to be out of school, because there is no time in history where you have this technology at your fingertips and you can be so dangerous within an organization by leveraging these tools that you could actually surpass somebody that has been at your firm or organization or industry who's been there for 20, 30, 40 years because they've checked out. They're not learning anymore.
Mhm.
Today, the variable is learning. And somebody that is hungry, that can learn about the world and these tools and how to use AI, like, they're going to become incredibly dangerous.
The Dangerous Person in the Room. That's your second book.
And that
That's
is
the
my
title of your
second
second
book.
book.
I appreciate it. I'm not sure how much I'm allowed to talk about it from my publisher, but
Okay.
I will say this is that, to me, the most dangerous person in the room is the person that understands everything that no one like that no one's going to tell you in school. You're not going to teach, you're not going to learn it in university. It's like all the things that you learn working within an organization, working within an industry. It is about status and hierarchy and power and how do you understand different patterns? How do you understand how an organization moves? That's what I learned, over, a couple decades working with, large organizations. How do people move and create value in their world? And so to me, this is the book that I want to give to my kids. It's all the things that nobody will teach you.
I want to challenge that perspective just a little bit. And more so because I think that a lot of young people are worried about the prevalence of AI. And so I want to get your take on
Please.
this,
Okay,
okay?
great.
Because I feel like this is right up your wheelhouse. But so there was, in August of 2025, there was this New York Times article that was published that sort of took over. Basically, what the article talked about was it all stemmed from a girl who had a 21-year-old girl who had just recently graduated with a computer science degree. And she posted this video on social media about how the only company that had called her for a job interview was Chipotle. And so the New York Times published this article about basically the idea that in the past, computer science jobs or computer engineering or software engineering, these were jobs that were advertised as providing you the golden ticket to being in the
Yeah.
upper middle class, right? And basically what this article said is that that is no longer the case because of AI. For a young grad or a recent grad, someone who's just starting out their career, who's seen an article like this and who has that perception in their mind, what would you say to that person?
I would say there is no golden ticket anymore. And the idea that there was a golden ticket was an incredible time. If you lived for the last, 300,000 years, there was a golden ticket when you became a doctor, an engineer, a lawyer, accountant. It was safe. There was a golden ticket when, the software engineering became the craze. There is no golden ticket anymore. And the reality is that there's going to be articles of people, that said, hey, I took 4 years of software engineering and now I can't get a job or, it's relevant. And I meet people every day that are creating value within their organizations because they're using these tools. I met somebody in like my office building. He's 18 years old. He learned Claude Code. He's not a coder. He learned how to use Claude Code. He is the most valuable person in his like real estate job. He literally came up to, and he's been following my content. He literally came up to me. He's like, I just got a second job being a mortgage underwriter. And, AI is helping me do that. I have 2 jobs now. And I don't even know what to do with myself.
Yeah.
Those are the stories that people don't want to report on, where somebody has agency
Mm.
and goes off and learns these tools and becomes an asset. I fundamentally believe that anybody that can learn AI, can master these tools, these agentic tools today, will become the most valuable people in their organization. I always say this, is that if you are scared of AI, and there's a lot of people that are scared of AI, I will say, if you are scared, somebody came up to me a number of months ago and said, your conversation on AI scared me. And I said, that was not my intention. I said, which part of the presentation scared you? She said, you're talking about data analytics. Like, that's part of my job. I grew up learning about data analytics. Like, that's my livelihood. And I asked her a question. I said, how much time have you actually invested in this space? And she said, not much. I said, the reason why you're scared is because you haven't put in the work yet. Every single person I've seen actually build a muscle in the space, actually build a proficiency. Not a single person has ever said that this technology is going to take their job. Every single person that builds a proficiency around these tools always says, oh my God, what can I build? What can I create? Get me another job. Get me another bot. They become empowered. And my advice to anybody that's scared of the technology is to work scared until you become scary. Like, work scared until you become dangerous. Like, work scared until you become the most dangerous person in the room. The reality is that every job is under threat, which because of AI. If you look at it through that lens, but if you actually look at it through the lens of, wait a minute, I have agency in my own life. I have agency in my own career.
Mhm.
And if I'm a talented individual, I can actually surpass the guy that has been there for 30, 40, 50 years because they
Right.
stopped learning. So I think this is an incredible opportunity for young people if you have the right mindset around it.
Why don't you think those stories, like the one you told of the 18-year-old who now has, you know, talk about the opposite of unemployed, 2 jobs. Why don't you think those stories are being reported on?
I mean, the media hates AI. And I think AI, I mean, I'm in the space. So like AI is literally the most unpopular thing to talk about like in the world. I don't know if you've seen like the NPS scores of AI. Like it is it's the least popular thing to talk about. It's like below like Iran and like Gaza. And it's like
Oh,
it's
god.
so unpopular.
Yeah.
And part of the reason is because people are afraid of it. And the media paints this narrative that it's like, it's going to destroy all these jobs.
Mhm.
And the reality is that it's going to create incredible opportunities and industries. And I think media does a great job at scaring us because that's their job. Their job is to get clicks and headlines. If they wrote a great story like a kid got 2 jobs, nobody's going to read that story. A
Right.
kid got 2 jobs. What's more juicy
Yeah.
is we found a girl and she could only work at Chipotle. Hey, I'm going to click on that one
Mhm.
more than a guy that had just got 2 jobs because that is what the incentive is around the media.
Do you think it's a marketing technique for AI companies at all? And I'll explain to you
Yeah.
what I mean by this, which is that, a lot of these companies are, positioning AI as a tool for businesses to not have to employ people anymore, right? Because AI can now do the job, which saves time, it saves resources, it saves money, it saves manpower, all of that, right? So do you think that it's a marketing tactic to get
Yeah.
funding for AI companies?
Yeah, absolutely. It's marketing. One of the leading companies in this space is Anthropic,
Mhm.
and they are the greatest in the world at scaring the public. I think their CEO, Dario Amodei, like every 6 months says, in 6 months, the all of white collar work will disappear. I think he said that 2 years ago, and we are still here. And I think there's more employment than ever before.
Mhm.
And so, um, it's a great marketing tactic because more organizations they're incentivized to create shareholder value. So they're like, hey, let's buy into Anthropic because they said that it's going to create incredible efficiencies and productivity, and it has. But I think what people have seen is that it's uplifted folks more than it's actually taken away jobs. And I think in many jobs, there is a lot of fat. There is a lot of waste. I mean, if anybody has worked within any organization for a minute, they
Mhm.
will see. I'm like, why are 12 people around the room and we're finessing a Word document on this thing? Why is this happening? There is so much waste within an organization, and I think AI will be an incredible equalizer. If you suck at your job, AI is going to expose you.
Mm.
And I think it's going to amplify the people that are great at their jobs.
Mhm.
It's going to um, expose the people that are weak. And in the end, it's going to be used by small and medium-sized businesses as an incredible accelerant
Mm.
for their businesses. And actually, if you look at job creation,
Mhm.
the majority of job creation is actually small and medium-sized businesses. When you see large companies reporting that they're cutting jobs, well, yeah, they had a lot of fat, but they're not the ones creating net new job growth and
Mhm.
creation. And so I think there'll be new jobs, new industries created that we haven't even thought about.
And I wanted to ask you about that because you had said a moment ago that there's more jobs now than ever before, right? Can you explain to me like what you mean by that? Because I think for a lot of people that concept in and of itself is it's not intuitive.
Well, somebody's got to fact check the unemployment figures, and there'll be a ticker right here. If you look at the unemployment numbers,
Yeah.
it's not like they're at an all time high. Listen, the models are smarter than every single person that's listening to this podcast combined.
Mhm.
Okay, the models are already there. I don't know when this is dropping, but we have Claude Opus 4.7, Gemini 3.1, ChatGPT 5.5. These models are incredible already. And no matter how good they get, at this point, they're already smarter and actually, I would say more capable than every single person. Yet employment is still at the same rate that it is. So I'm confused as to when is it going to take jobs? When is it going to get smarter? It's already, you know what I mean?
So smart,
It's
yeah.
already incredibly smart.
Right.
So
Right. What about the perspective, though, that it's not necessarily taking jobs away, but it's preventing new jobs from being created? For instance, my partner is currently building a business, and
love it.
he builds. And I actually wish he was here today because I was saying that him and you would have so much to talk about because he loves AI. He's so into it. But his whole company is about building agents for accounting firms.
Yeah.
Okay? And so, what I've seen him be able to do as someone who is not a coder, has no background in software engineering, he's been able to build, now he's got an engineer on his team, but even before he had an engineer, he was able to basically build the product already using Claude code. And even his website is completely coded, and all of that is stuff that he would have needed an engineer to do
100%.
before, right? So what about the perspective that, take him, for instance, where in the past he would have had to hire someone to do all those tasks for him, and now he doesn't. So therefore, you've got a job that would have been created in the past that's not being created now.
In the 10 years ago, your partner would have been working at a firm like a monkey, and he would have been senior accountant number 2. And now he's creating a business that's going to create value for these firms, and he's going to hire more people. That example in itself is that it is an example. That's why it's so beautiful, is that, he's creating value. He's becoming an entrepreneur, and he's going to hire more people. He's going to create net new jobs for people in this scenario. Like, even if he gets one employee on his team, that's more than he probably would have already done just by working at a firm.
Yeah.
So take that example. If he has one person, that's already a net gain because of AI. And so, as somebody that, I built things, and back in the day, like, I didn't know how to code. So I had to hire a dev, a fractional dev, a fractional designer, a fractional QA person, a fractional, person. And then those folks they wouldn't be on my team. They wouldn't be fully employed, but they would do some contract work. Those people are still valuable. You still need a developer to take you through that final sort of endpoint. You still might need a designer to sort of get you to that final point at the end of the day. But I just think that there's going to be net new growth because of that example.
Yeah.
But you tell me what you're younger than me, so and you have all these friends. Why do you think that fear exists?
I think fundamentally that fear exists because people don't understand it, like you said, right? So I think what you said about how the best way, and I'm paraphrasing you because you said it more eloquently than I'm going to put it, but essentially this idea that like the best way to conquer something scary is by being the scary thing itself, right? I think the problem is that people fundamentally do not know how to use AI. And I'm obviously, I have exposure to AI through my partner who's very into it and excited about it and all of that. And so I hear things from him, right? But, I don't consider myself someone who's very skilled at AI because I'm not consistently using it. And when you compare myself to someone like him, I feel like I don't know much about AI. But I find myself explaining AI to a lot of my friends, right? I recently, over the weekend, I was running with a friend, and to be fair, he's a tap dancer, so I'm not sure how much AI plays into that, although it could. But he didn't know what agents were, and so I had to explain to him what that was. And to me, that was crazy because like here I was as someone who I thought like I didn't know anything about AI, explaining AI to my friend who knows even less about AI, right? So I think that that's where it comes from. It's just like a fundamental lack of understanding
Yeah,
of
yeah.
the tool, what it can do, and the value it can create, like you said.
And what I've noticed is that there's two universes that exist today in AI. There is one universe where your partner is living.
Mhm.
He's living in like this Claude land where he's creating agents.
Yeah.
And then there's the other universe, which is actually the majority of people, which they are tap dancers and they're like, what is, I used ChatGPT for a recipe like yesterday.
Mhm.
So what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And that is that those are the two universes that exist.
Mhm.
And trying to get these people to talk to these people, it's a foreign language.
Mhm.
And so I agree that there's a because the reason there's fear is because there is this misinformation, misunderstanding, lack of education, whatever you might call it. And that's why I love what I do, because my job is to educate more people to say, this is the most empowering technology that we've ever seen in human history. And the more that you can, you know, grab hold of this, the more value you're going to create for your career and your life.
Mm.
And so that's why I love what I get to do. And I agree with you. And I think there'll be less fear when people start leveraging it. We were always fearful of technology throughout human history. It's something new. It's something that we've always been fearful of. We used to be afraid of bicycles because we thought unmarried women would be able to go to one village to another village without even asking. We were afraid of like telephones. We thought telephones would destroy concert halls because people would listen to music through the telephones. And I'm not even joking. Like, people really had like these weird things that they were thinking about with these technologies. And the same thing will be funny with AI. It's funny. I met this like woman the other day, and she's like, "Oh, I'm never gonna talk to like a robot." I'm like, do you have like an Alexa at home?" She said,
Right.
"Yeah."
Siri? Yeah.
"Do you have Siri at home?"
Yeah.
"Yeah." "Do you use Google Maps to like tell you like where to go?" She's
Yeah.
like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Do you use Netflix and it tells you like what the top 10 like things are? Do you use Spotify and like you're using AI every day?"
Every day.
And so the difference between like what you're doing right now versus like you're building agent is actually very thin. It's very thin. And what you're gonna see is that these platforms are to make it so intuitive that it's just gonna be our natural behavior. You're already seeing AI become the interface to everything. Like, most people now, not most people, but many people now, if you've got you're looking for a restaurant, or if you're looking for something, like you go to ChatGPT first and or Gemini, and that's what you look up first.
Right.
And
Right.
it's becoming like the default interface. And that's why it's going to change so many businesses and how we interact with the internet.
So then for someone who doesn't know much about AI, right? And they want to become more educated, where do they start?
The best place to start is to not start with the AI. I think
What do you mean by that?
I think the best place to start is to just take a pen and a paper and identify things in your life that you need help with. What are your challenges? What are your issues? What are your problems? It could be your life. It could be your business. Start with that. Because to me, AI is great at solving a problem. But if you don't have a problem to solve,
Mm.
then you have nothing to start with. So start with that. And once you have that, go to any large language model, whether it's ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude or Grok or any of the leading large language models
Mhm.
that are out there. Just type it in, ChatGPT, Gemini, whatever, and say, hey, these are my problems. How would I start to automate these things?
Mm.
And guess what? The smartest entities in the world, smarter than any other human on the planet, will say, hey, this is actually how you start. Based on the problems that you've given me, this is what you should do. And then what I would do is I would take 30 minutes to go on YouTube based on the answer that you get, follow along, and and then if you don't know what to do, ask the AI, hey, I'm a 5-year-old. Explain this to me and step by step how I can do this.
Mhm.
And that's the beautiful thing about AI, is that it will teach you like a 5-year-old how to walk through something. And to me, I equate it to going to the gym. When you go to the gym for the first time, it's incredibly overwhelming. You see all these people using all these machines. It's incredibly intimidating. I'll give you an example. My friend Jeff, he's ripped, and I've known him for my whole life. He's the most ripped dad that I know,
Okay.
and he doesn't go to the gym. He's just been
He
working out.
doesn't go to the
No,
gym?
he's been like on a prison sentence basically for 20 years in his house doing like push-ups and like he's got a bench at his house,
Jesus,
right? So he
okay.
doesn't have a commercial gym. He's just jacked by being in his home gym.
Wow.
But what happened was like a couple weekends ago, he had to like do his basement or whatever. And he called me. He's like, hey, let's go to the gym. I take the most ripped guy and we go to the gym. And he's looking at all these different machines and he's intimidated. Wait, so you're telling me the most experienced guy or the most ripped guy is intimidated going to the gym? Yeah, because it's a new tool. And I don't care who you are, when you have new tools in front of you, it can be intimidating. But like going to the gym, it really doesn't matter where you start. It just matters that you start using these different machines and you see what works for you. And the point of going to the gym is that the first and the second and the 500th time that you're there, that ultimately, hopefully, that the tools become light in your hand. So I would say the best thing that you can do is just pick up any tool and just start playing with it. And the more that you can play with a series of different tools, you'll see how they interact and be like, you know what? This is kind of aligns with a little bit more of how I work. I don't like how this kind of works. You'll figure it out. And so to me, that's what you need to do. And by the way, there is actually a machine at the gym that is the best machine. There is one.
Which is what?
That's the one that scans you in.
The one that what?
That scans you in.
The scans you. Oh.
Yeah. So
I like that a lot.
Yeah. So you got to just explore and experiment and play. So that's why I always say, people ask me what the best tool is, and I'm agnostic. I don't know what the best tool is because it's changing every single day.
Yeah.
But I'm like, yeah, you should use Claude and ChatGPT and Gemini. You should use Midjourney and OpenClaw. You should try all of them. You should try all of them and try different use cases because you're going to figure out how they work. And you should spend I don't care how much money you have. You should be thinking about this differently than other software in your life. You should be thinking about this as labor. So yes, something might cost $200 a month, and that's a lot of money for many, many people. The reality is that this is the greatest. An MBA will cost you, I don't know,
100,000.
For $200 a month. You're gonna get the greatest educator, the greatest way of building a skill set in the most important technology of your lifetime. It is the best investment that you can make. And I don't even care which large language model it is. Just buy the max plan for like Claude or whatever and figure it out and build an agent, automate your life. And I think I've never met somebody in my life. They got a Claude Max plan or they got a ChatGPT Max plan and they start building agents and they come to me like, this was useless.
This sucked. Yeah.
I've never met it. Most people that hate AI is because they use a free tool like last year, like this sucks. It hallucinates. It doesn't work. Yep. The difference between what's happening now, I don't know when this is dropping, but like May of 2026 versus what you experienced in May of 2025 or 2023 is completely different.
Speaking on behalf of, I think, the legal industry, there's there's a lot of legal AI tools now.
Yeah, Harvey, Legora.
Right, exactly. But there's, right, co-counsel. But there's a lot of resistance against implementing AI in everyday work product. And that's because AI used to hallucinate, right? A ton. Yeah. And in recent years, and actually recent months, there's been decisions coming out from the Superior Court. Well, actually, at first, I think the first decision of an AI hallucination came out of the US.
Yeah.
But in recent months, there's been some coming out of even Ontario now of, well, this lawyer's been reprimanded because they cited in their factum a bunch of cases that don't actually exist, right?
And that's not the AI's fault.
Exactly.
That's the idiot lawyer's fault.
Exactly.
For trusting that the AI it's not like every single software that we've seen before. It's not Microsoft Excel. It's not the calculator. It's like a teammate. It's the greatest teammate that you'll ever have. But a teammate, like an intern, is going to make a mistake.
Yeah.
They're going to make up stuff. It's not going to, you have to review it. And so to me, that's the fault of the lawyer, not the AI.
I agree. I 100% agree. And I think that's where the missing piece is, because people are looking at things like that and they're saying, well, AI is bad, right? AI is going to hallucinate. So therefore I can't I can't use it, right? Sorry, go
And,
ahead.
and so I would, by the way, and it's so funny because people always point to like these one or two cases where this happens. There's billions of people using this technology every single day. And the fact that there are very few cases where this is happening, like just think about the amount of people using
Mhm,
this for everything. And, we can only point to a couple of examples is actually really crazy.
mhm.
So
Right,
that's what I would say.
right. What's a problem that AI solved for you?
I mean, where do I start? Um, I'll talk to you about the most recent thing, which is, creativity, taste. For the longest time, AI is great at research. Great at code. It's great at writing. But can it be creative? Can it create taste? Can it create a nice motion graphic? And, Claude just came out with this thing called Claude Design.
Mm,
And the fact that it can create like really compelling motion graphics, which is something that I use all day long in my presentations. Like I don't use like just static images. I use
moving.
graphics.
Yeah.
And the fact that I can create these graphics in Claude Design and they actually look really nice, um, has been such a game changer. They're beautiful. They're animated. They move. It's something that I could not create unless I was a motion designer.
Mhm.
And it's actually been a fundamental unlock to be like, what more can it do? I think that's the one. And then I think earlier this year, what was really the unlock is I use this technology called OpenClaw. So what OpenClaw is, it's an open source innovation. It's like any of these agent tools, but it's the difference with OpenClaw. I just feel like it's like a better Siri. It's always on. It's 24/7. It's eager. It's constantly asking you, hey, how can I help you? It will go off. It will fix itself. It will fix its own bugs. And that's what's been really, it's been like a spiritual experience. Um, don't clip this because then people will be like, it really has been a spiritual experience using OpenClaw because it's the first time that I've seen what like a personal, COO or chief of staff really feels like in an AI world.
What do you mean by that?
Well, just having a agent that understands everything that's going on in your life and your business, and it gets forwarded emails and it has all that context, and I can ask it any question. It has all the context. It
Mm,
can go off and get stuff done. It's not just
right.
answering questions. It's like, hey, like the other day, like I was in the airport. I'm like, hey, I left something on my laptop. I left a presentation on my laptop. Can you go and like retrieve it, upload it to Dropbox, and then like, can I get? And then yeah, I did it. So it's like,
Wow.
so, it's kind of like a human in that way, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And that
like a personal
yeah,
assistant.
like a real, real assistant. And so that's been really the unlock.
I'm curious, Sean, because you're obviously very interested in technology. This is I can see in your
Yes.
face that this is something that really genuinely excites you. In preparing for this episode, I actually watched the very first YouTube video you posted, or at least that exists. I don't know if
Okay,
it's the first one
okay,
that you
okay,
posted.
okay,
Okay,
yeah.
but
How long ago was that?
it was 9 years ago.
Okay.
Okay, and it was a clip where you were talking about Domino's and how you're making the case for how Domino's is at its core a tech company,
Yeah.
and that's why its stock price has surged even higher than the
That was 10
typical.
years ago, by the way. So that was 10 years ago. Yeah.
Basically, we were saying in that is that the reason why it surged even greater than the typical tech giants like Apple and Tesla and all of that is because it at its core understands how to use technology and how to weaponize it,
Yeah.
right? Where does your interest in technology come from? Because even 9 years ago in that video, you were talking about AI.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. 100%. I've always been talking about AI. It's just become a bigger part of my, my presentation. Uh, really my love for technology has always been, um, it comes back from my father. My father he would always be a first mover in any sort of technology. So like we had computers like really young. Like I don't remember a time where we didn't have a computer. We were like very early on the internet. My brother and I having internet. So my dad would always like push us to, um, you know, whether it's to get in front of a computer, experiment with the internet, etc. So I've always been because of that upbringing. I've always just been curious about technology. And it's not only curious about technology, it's a curiosity around people. And I think what innovation is all about, it's about understanding human behavior
Mhm.
and why does something work. And so to me, those two things is like technology and understanding why do people do the things that they do,
Mhm.
or why do they consume what they consume, has always been fascinating. That's why I love content too. Like I
Mm.
love putting out content because it's a beautiful test to see it, will people enjoy this,
Mhm.
right? And I've always been fascinated by that too. So, yeah, that's kind of I think that's where it comes from.
Mm. Okay. So content, I wanted to
Yeah, let's go
this
back because you went
yeah,
back.
this
You
is
went back to the archives for me.
I did,
and and
yeah.
and one thing that I know that you're really passionate about, and that I've noticed over the last number of episodes, is that obviously you're incredibly talented, at creating content, and that's why you're gonna go crazy.
I appreciate
You're gonna
that.
be bigger than everyone
Alex
because
Cooper.
yeah, I know. I mean, yeah, where does your love from content come from?
Storytelling.
Yeah,
Yeah. You know, it's funny that you say or you get the impression that I love content because for a very long time I didn't. So my quote unquote content journey started when I started a charcuterie business when I was in law school. And for people who've listened to this episode or who've
yeah,
listened to my podcast for a while, I'm sorry I'm talking about the charcuterie business again. But in order for me to market this business, I had to start creating content
yeah,
and I hated it. I hated it because I was very much so struggling with putting myself out there and the cringe factor, quote
yeah.
unquote,
But by the
that came
way,
with it.
charcuterie TikTok is the best kind of TikTok. Like, who doesn't want to see good charcuterie?
I agree. I
Come on.
agree. I mean, that's why I got into charcuteries because I was watching videos of other people
Right.
making charcuterie, right? So once I got over that, I started falling in love with content because of the storytelling aspect of it. To be honest, that's been sort of the common thread throughout my life is I love storytelling.
Yeah.
That's why I'm so fascinated by, a career like yours, keynote speaking, because at the end of the day, you're persuading in a storytelling
Yeah.
fashion, right? And you are so good at it. I've watched so many of your talks
I
and
appreciate
you're
that.
so um excellent at what you do. But that's also, a large part of why I chose law because in a way it is also storytelling.
Yeah.
You're telling the story of your client, right?
Yes.
And this podcast is that, right? It's storytelling at its core. It's talking about the stories of other people, how they built the careers that they did, the things in their lives that have directed them or redirected them on different paths. So that's where it comes from for me, is just I like telling stories.
Love
I
that.
like listening to them.
I was trying to give you some advice at the beginning of this pod about this pod. And my advice is that, this is great. And I hope this is the best episode. And we learned a lot about me. But I actually think that when the day that this podcast goes crazy
Mhm.
is the day that you do the solo pod and you just spit for 2 hours and then everyone just learns about you and what you're all about. And I just think that people will naturally fall in love with you, not the guest.
Mhm.
You know how hard it's going to get guests, by the way? I'm sure you know.
It's
You've
hard.
reached out to people, but it's like, is the guest going to pull? Is the guest? Am I really going to? Am I? I mean, I mean, maybe is Shawn Kanungo really going to pull more viewers for you, or are you gonna is the audience just gonna fall in love with you and your responses and who you are?
Mhm.
I think that's the latter. But
Mm.
please challenge me on this because and
Well
we're early enough in this pod existence that I can tell you this.
well, thank you. I appreciate that. And, what you just said is something is sort of a theme that I've heard you say a few times, which is that, people don't follow businesses or companies, they follow people.
Exactly.
Okay. And actually, I think this is a good time to pivot to your book,
Oh, okay.
The Bold Ones.
Love it.
I want to ask you a question about this, but then I want to tell you about how this book has changed this podcast for me.
Oh,
Okay.
wow.
So, first of all, I want to tell you that I read this book in one sitting. It was that good. And it was that easy to
Wow.
read, by
I
the way.
appreciate that.
We talk about storytelling, and I said how great of a storyteller you are. Um, this book proves that. So,
Nice. I appreciate that.
what is a bold one? Who is a bold one?
Yeah. People think that people that are bold are individuals that are they're courageous, they're They have this incredible confidence. But time and time again, if you take a look at, the stories that unpack the individuals in this book, is that these are individuals that they went off and they did it scared. And they had conviction around a particular industry or a particular idea. And it's not that they had the confidence, but they just did it scared. And to me, that's what a bold one is. It's someone who is willing to disrupt and willing to do it scared. And to me, that's what encapsulates really what a bold one is all about.
So after reading this book, actually not even after reading this book, after reading, I think this was in like maybe even the first chapter, one of the earlier
Yeah.
chapters. You talked about a story, or you shared a story back during your Deloitte days.
Yeah.
And you were at Deloitte for 10 years.
Yeah.
Or sorry, 12 years.
Yeah.
12 years. You're at Deloitte for 12 years. You shared a story about how your team was planning a business forum, and you decided, okay, who's like the most crazy person I could invite? And you emailed the premier.
Yeah.
And you also emailed Apple.
Yeah.
And both of them said yes.
Yes.
So when I read that, I implemented a rule on my podcast, which is if I have an idea for a guest who I believe or I have a strong feeling will either say no or will ignore me, then I have to send the email and invite them onto the podcast.
Love that. Love that.
So, but I had a question as I was reading this, which is you just spoke about how the bold ones are the ones who are willing to do the things that others aren't.
Yes.
They have like an inkling about a certain industry and how they can change it and disrupt it, and they act on it. But how do you know, as the person venturing out into that new world, how do you know whether or not to keep going or whether or not it's the wrong path?
Yeah. It's an incredible question. And I think you will never know. You've gone through the suffering and just being tired and you will never know when is the right time to quit. And I think that's what differentiates some of the greats to the people that actually never made it. It's because they just persevered and then finally things worked. I think about, Mr. Beast, the guy posted like 1,000 videos, before he even just before everything took off. And you see that with, Dyson, you see that with some of the greatest innovators of all time, is that they persevered. And I think part of it is that you have a passion, you have this conviction that there is an inkling here. You have to have some inkling that there is something here. And it could be just a positive reinforcement from like one person. It could be like bringing one person along the journey. I think product market fit is incredibly important. So like whether it's you're in content creation and like one person reaches out to you saying, "Hey, we love what you're doing." Man, they truly love what I'm doing. Maybe there's a path and I can find more of those types of individuals. Or maybe you create a product and somebody really loves it and say, "Hey, when's the next shipment?" It's like, "Okay, I found someone." And so you have an early inkling that you have something, but you just have to persevere. And I think to make that journey a little bit better is that you bring people along. You get a champion. You convince and persuade other people to come on that journey. And at a certain point, when you're exhausted and you're like, "I can't go any farther," and then maybe there is a time that you let go. But what I've seen time and time again is that passion, that conviction will push you past a point where you probably should have quit a long time ago. I even think about my journey, like, just getting into like speaking, which is something that I never even knew that was a path. Like I didn't know that was a thing. I didn't even know that it was a business or an industry. I knew that there was something there. I knew that like I was good at it and I knew I was making an impact. So for me, it was like betting on myself to be like, yeah, where can this go? And, it's like I did 100 speeches for free before anybody ever paid me.
Wow.
And to me, it was like, I just knew that I was developing something. I was developing an audience. People were grabbing hold of the ideas. Obviously, I was getting new gigs. So people I saw that. And then, to me, I had to go through that period before things took off.
Mm,
And so I think everybody has to go through that, which is like you have to find like some inkling that this is going to work.
right. And that period is the period that either weeds you out, weeds
Yeah,
people
you
who
have
don't
to
actually wanna
suffer.
learn.
And
Yeah.
and I think, especially for a podcast like this, for example,
Mhm.
like you got to suffer for like a decade. And it's like, and maybe it will pop, and then maybe it will come up. But at least
Yeah.
you enjoy it, and you're enjoying the journey, and
Mhm.
that's the part. If you're not enjoying the journey, then you're gonna fall off.
Yeah.
And that's what differentiates everybody else, is that they're enjoying the process, the journey, the struggle. And yeah,
Do you know where the word passion comes from?
no,
It comes from the Latin word passio, which
okay,
means to suffer.
really?
Yes.
Oh wow, I had no
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah. I actually have an episode about it.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, but, I wanted to tell you that because it reminded me a lot of
Oh,
what you
okay.
just said. Yeah,
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because I guess that's what gets you through the suffering. It
exactly.
is the passion at the end
Right.
of it. That's a
Yeah.
great, I'm gonna use that.
Yeah. So what my partner is the one who told me about it, and what he said was, the question isn't it shouldn't be what you're passionate about, but what you're willing to suffer for. Because there is that period of suffering, and you have to ask yourself, is that period a period that I'm willing to go through?
Yeah,
Yeah.
love that.
Okay, so Shawn, as we wrap up this episode, I have a tradition on this podcast
Yes.
where I ask every single one of my guests the same ending question. And that is, if I were to sit down and interview you in 5 years' time, what would have to happen in your life to make you feel proud?
The reality is that already at the happiest, proudest moment of my life. Truly, like I'm truly grateful now. So if you ask me in 5 years, I don't think I can exceed it. So this is it. Really, if something happens to me tomorrow, like I'm gonna be sitting here incredibly proud. I just in the next 5 years, what I'm hoping happens is that I continue to build new rooms, and that requires more shots. You take more failures. You try things that are fun and that will push yourself outside of your comfort zone. That's it. But it's not going to increase my level of success or happiness in any sort of way. But it's continued to build my identity. So, that's what I would say to that.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time. I mean, you just flew into Toronto today, and you came on to the podcast. So I really appreciate you taking the time, and I can't wait to see where you go
I
next.
appreciate it. Well, if by the way, if you got this far, rate, review, subscribe, whatever you got to do with the pod, please, because she's putting
Thank
in the
you.
work. And no, obviously I said this at the beginning. Part of the reason why I came on this pod is that I just think I can see it. It's coming together, and you have everything that you know you have everything that will really turn this into a juggernaut. So I'm excited for you.
Well,
So it was an honor to be on.